Hello, this is Sarah V, and today I am going to be making my dress for Valentine's Day. As of tomorrow, Valentine's Day is a week away, so gotta get started on that. Lickety split. The pattern I am using is Simplicity 4227, and this morning I copied this out onto pattern paper and altered it. So it should fit. And if it doesn't, big sad. I did all of the pattern alterations I normally do, so in theory it should work. The fabric I'm using looks to be polished cotton that I got from Fabricmart that has like pressed creases into it. That was part of the fabric style. And I am going to do embroidery where that is, except I'm not going to do that embroidery. I am going to use a motif from A Year of Embroidery by Yumiko Higuchi. I haven't done any in this one, but I have one of her other books. It has little animals. It has bunnies on the cover. I don't remember what it's called right now. But I am going to be doing a motif. This is a month-to-month collection of motifs for seasonal stitching. It's in the February section, and I'm going to be doing the sweet flowers. And since this pink is the same color as the fabric, I am going to use a berry tone for that instead. To start things out, I am cutting out the skirt pieces. This time I am able to cut everything out double layer, which is really nice. And it took significantly less time than my past couple projects. I think every project that I've cut out this year, I've had to cut it single layer. So this was nice, fast, and refreshing. I think next week that I am going to make some slips. I would like to make another pink slip, and that one I would like to make so it fits under this dress. Because at the end I talk about this, but the slip I made in January is a little short for it. And then I also want to make a black slip that I would like to be able to wear underneath the black corduroy dress I just made. After the skirts, I am cutting out the front facing along with the front and back bodice on the fold of the fabric. I am hoping that by doing the slips next week, I'll get back on track because they are an easy project. My week is going to be a little busy, so I should be able to fit them in because they aren't hard to do. And hopefully I will get back to uploading at the same time every week, which is ideal. Back last year, I started putting everything out on Fridays, but I think I'm going to be doing it on Saturdays now. The last few things I'm cutting out here are the back facing, which I cut out previously, and then now I'm just doing the pockets. Onto the bodice front, I left extra fabric along the neckline so I could get it into the embroidery hoop later, and so I knew where the edge is. I drew the neckline in with pencil on one side and used transfer paper to mark the other side. While I was doing this, I marked all the darts and tucks on the front and back bodice pieces. Before transferring the embroidery, I basted 5/8 inch away from the edge along the neckline so I could use it as a guide while placing the design down. To transfer the pattern, I used parchment paper to trace it from the book. Then I arranged it on the bodice and placed the transfer paper under it and just used a pencil to trace on top of the parchment paper. The parchment paper was the only paper I had around that I could see through. That's why I used it. You can also use tracing paper. That would work too. And the embroidery books say to put a layer of cellophane down so it doesn't ruin the paper that you use to transfer it onto. I did end up doing most of my embroidery off camera. I ended up doing it in the evenings, and it was just kind of nice and leisurely, and I was able to do it in my jammies, which was nice. As someone who mostly freestyles embroidery, I love this author/embroiderer. The instructions are super easy to follow and stinking cute. I am actually obsessed with her embroidery right now and her books. And I've actually started making a bunch of wee little towels with a bunch of animals on it from her book on stitching animals. And I'm just in love with it. I also have absolutely no connections to this book. It is just, in my opinion, a book that I really enjoy. And I think that it is straightforward enough that if you haven't done a lot of embroidery, it would be a good choice. Now that the embroidery is done, I can move over to my sewing machine. Starting things off, I am sewing all the darts and tucks on the bodice front and the waist darts at the bodice back. After pressing and ironing the bodice pieces, I can sew the neck facing together at the center front, followed by the two shoulder seams. Moving on to the shoulders of the bodice pieces, I am running gathering stitches near the end of the shoulders. After this, they get gathered down to 1 inch. After pinning the shoulders with the gathers in place, the shoulders can be stitched together. At my table, I am trimming the facing seams so they are less bulky where the seams meet, followed by marking out where the convex point needs to be stitched at. To mark out where this convex point is, I am just punching a hole through the pattern piece because it's a copy, I don't care. And then now that there's a hole in that, I can just mark with a little pencil where it needs to go, or you could use chalk. It's whatever. Now that this is marked, I can go over to the ironing board and give it a nice good press on all those wee little seams I trimmed down. After ironing my bias to the curve of the sleeve edge, I stitched it in, followed by sewing the neck facing in. Next, I get to do a good trim and clip to the neck facing seam so that it turns out nicely. At the machine, I am understitching the neck facing where I can get it in. I couldn't get into the area where it is very sharply pointed around the neckline. It's like an area about slightly less than 1 inch probably. There's no way the presser foot's ever going to fit in that area. After that, I am stitching up the underarm seams, which I had to unpick to about the bottom of where the dart folds down and inserted a gusset to give my arms and shoulders room. And boy, did that make a difference in the ease of getting it over my head. Moving on to the skirt, I sewed the front pieces together at center front and the back pieces at center back. I sewed the singular pockets to the right side seam, and the left pocket I stitched both pocket sides together. After pressing my seams, I understitched the front pockets and sewed the left pocket onto the front. Now I can sew up my side seams, the right side starting at the top of the pocket and the left starting just under the pocket. I am now able to sew the bodice to the skirt. Afterwards, I serged the edge and edge stitched the seam allowance up. And at the beginning of this clip, you noticed Scooty was there. He did not want to be in this video, I guess, because he didn't really show up very much, I guess, but that's up to him. It's his choice always. I never force him to be in the camera. The zipper can now be inserted. The next day, I sewed the arm bias facing down and hemmed the skirt with Mr. Scooter. He is very good company, and he is very soft and very sweet. After a press of the hem, she is complete. I think this dress turned out pretty cute. I really like how the embroidery turned out, although I did have fit issues, which are entirely my own fault, because even though I did the alterations that I did to a similar pattern, to this pattern, that pattern I made a mock-up for, and this one I did not. So it was too tight on my shoulders and arms, so I ended up putting a gusset underneath the arm. And then, for some reason, even though I added the same amount to the skirt and the top, the skirt ended up wider. I don't know. So in the front, I just kind of took out one of the tucks so that it would match up better. But in the back, I more or less just eased it in, which there was more than could be eased in, so it's a little gathery, which I'm not super happy about, but I can't be bothered to fix it either. And then the one that bothers me the most is that even though whenever I look at a pattern, I tend to hold it up to myself to see where the waist will be. This belt should be about down here. Before I put the pattern away, I'm actually going to cut it and make the waist longer. But you can cheese it a little with the belt, which does make my waist look a little shorter, but it is what it is. Also, the slip that I made I made it back in January. It was the only thing I made off camera, but it's short. It's like 6 inches shorter than my dress. So that's good. Everything's fantastic. At least at a glance it is quite cute. Is it almost my skin tone? Potentially. Do I care? No. My husband once told me I can't wear pink because it's like basically my skin tone. But I'm going to keep wearing it. It's like my arms are just part of the dress. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to see more sewing content, please subscribe. If you'd like to see what I'm up to day to day, feel free to follow me at Sarah V Sews Vintage. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.